Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chia and today I decided to hurt my feelings. I decided to read 1-star reviews of books that I gave 5 stars to. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't like reading reviews that are knocking down my favorite book, but here we are. So let's get started. The first book is going to be Happy Place by Emily Henry. Happy Place was one of my favorite reads of 2024. This is the first book I ever read of Emily Henry's and it's one of my favorites because it hurt me in a way that I didn't know I could be hurt and emotionally make me invested into characters that are not necessarily a fantasy setting. And this one follows not only a character's relationship with her ex, but also a relationship she has with a bunch of friends that she grew up with and have been her closest friends since she was in college. So the first 1-star review I found was, some of you guys are harsh in your ratings. First one says, Miss Henry, can you explain how Shadi's gonna pay those loans off? Which, fair, because if you knew the ending and what kind of stuff that the character goes through, you do wonder what is she gonna do to pay off all the loans she took out for school because of some choices she made. So yeah, valid, very valid. I wanted to preface this by the way that I know that people's opinions are differing on every single book that you read. I know that books that I love are gonna be your 1-star reads, and books that are your favorite I'm probably not gonna like myself and I rate it really low. Reading is subjective, and that's the great things about reading, is because everyone has different opinions. That's why I get nervous sometimes when I recommend any book to anyone that I know or friends or anyone online, because I'm afraid that they're not gonna like it and might not trust my opinions anymore. But then again,
don't attack the people who are giving you recommendations.
Because again, reading is subjective, so it's everyone's personal opinions. If I do start getting like feisty in some of these books, they are some of my favorites, so they are gonna hurt me emotionally because I do get emotionally attached to books. Somebody said, no offense, but you guys are lying. I mean, not necessarily, because everyone has their own opinions. Someone said, I was so irritated with this book. I basically hate Reddit. So much eye rolling, so much miscommunication. These characters are so idiotic with their decisions and ideas of love, romance. The friend group is also stupid, and the way that everyone treats each other is terrible. Ugh, definitely the worst rom-com I've ever read, and the worst Emily Henry book so far. If you hated the book so much, then stop reading it. Don't hate read a book and then nick down every single time that you read something that you hate and then put in your review. Understandably, you don't like it, so move on. And also, miscommunication, fair, but there is a bunch of issues that they do have to work with that they have been avoiding. So of course it's going to be miscommunications between them, and I hate the miscommunication trope myself. But then again, this wrapped up at the end, noticing why the different reasons why the miscommunication things happened. So again, don't hate read books. If you guys don't like a book, put it down. I can't say personally that it's easy for me because I can't even put down books, but you know, it's protecting your peace by DNFing books. So I hate it when people say that they hate read books. You shouldn't have to hate read. You shouldn't have to force yourself to do that. But moving on, I'm breaking up with you, Emily. It's not me, it's you. I'm sorry. I just don't like her writing style that much. Story was a bit dull and I didn't like any of the characters. Pacing was also off. Basically, this book is boring, which is also my main issue with book lovers. I mean, fair that you decide to give her another shot. Somebody said not my happy place. I mean, fair. Y'all lied. I truly feel like I'm on an episode of Punk'd. Kids, have your parents tell you what the show was. Y'all was out there. Do you guys remember this show Punk'd? Or am I like too old to talk about that? Y'all was out here saying how beautiful and romantic this book was. Where? What book did y'all read? I mean, it's not necessarily romantic. I don't think it was, but let me back up and say something nice about this book. It's a quick read. I don't have to read any more Emily Henry novel. Okay, alright, let's move on because this is hurting. So let's move on to a dark academia book I read last year, If We Were Villains. I thought this book was beautifully written. It talks about these characters who are involved in this like academic setting, and they are in like a Shakespeare kind of program where they put on Shakespeare plays, and they all are kind of pretentious, talking to each other in Shakespeare lines, and spend a lot of time just revolving around Shakespeare plays. So this book follows a setting of dark academia that is set in a mystery, and I absolutely love this book. I thought it was beautifully written. I thought that the characters were flawed, and there was not necessarily a character I rooted for because of like all the things that they were doing and the choices they were making, the terrible things that they would do to other people. And I don't really see that they were like a cohesive friend group, but they bonded over their interest of being in this program with each other. But some mystery happens where one of the students ended up getting murdered. I thought it was great. Let me read people's 1-star rating of this. I'm going to break my silence, speak my truth. This is secret history for dummies with annoying theater majors, and you can't convince me otherwise. If you're gonna very blatantly rip off what I consider one of the best novels ever written, at least do a good job of it. Also, coming from someone who's loved Shakespeare to the point where she took 4 Shakespeare courses during college, it's like off-brand The Secret History meets Glee. I haven't read The Secret History, so let me know in the comments if you have, but I don't know. I've kind of heard bad reviews of Secret History and I feel like I wouldn't like it. But I loved If We Were a Villain. I guess to each their own. This one says, no, no, no. Why are people handing this 5 stars? I don't know, maybe they're all in love with Richard. God knows all the rest of us are. Really? But then I remember not everyone was in love with Richard. But hasn't anyone noticed this lightweight Secret History wannabe? Only with annoying theater majors? So maybe I wouldn't like Secret History then, since like apparently this is a knockoff of it. But there's always back and forth when I see people's opinions about the Secret History. A lot of them, they both read Secret History and If We Were Villains, and the ones who do not like Secret History end up liking If We Were Villains. So it might be like a line between the two. What normal human being starts quoting Shakespeare verbatim in the middle of a sentence? They need to get a gripeth. That was funny. Some of these reviews are freaking funny. But let's move on to the next book that I rated 5 stars. The next book is gonna be Infernal Devices, the whole entire trilogy, because I rated every single book 5 stars because of how amazing it was. Let's start off with Clockwork Angel. It has an average 4.31 rating with 853,000 reviews. So I hope there's not a lot of 1-star rating reviews on this, but this is the first book, so let me see. The only reason why I'm reading this series is because of a group buddy read. It's really fun to read all books when we all have different opinions, but that book, I mean, I felt like it was exactly the same thing as City Bones with just better writing style. The 2 main characters were exactly the same as the one in other books. Okay, I have to protest that because Tessa and Will are different from Jason Clary. They are a lot more interesting characters than I liked from Jason Clary, and they're more set in an urban setting, whereas these ones are a lot more different dialogues because it's set in Victorian times. I will highly argue with that comment. And then let's look at the one for the ending for Clockwork Princess. I've read a good number of books in my existence on this planet. I'm excluding books read in past existence from the sample. I've also hated a surprisingly sadly large proportion of those books. A round laughable ending than this one. I do not like the Shadowhunters world. No blame on you if you do. I wish I'd enjoyed it more. I mean, valid since she didn't like the Shadowhunters world. Probably my least favorite ending to Claire's Shadowhunter series to date. I thought the ending was beautiful, the way it wrapped up and completely gave a good story to both characters, but they're saying that it's a cop-out for the ending of the book. I honestly think it was fitting for who the characters were. I honestly think that the ending was absolutely perfect, and the epilogue was really one of my favorite epilogues of all time.
I don't know who hurt you.
If you don't like that ending. Okay, moving on to my next 5-star read, which was Red Rising. If you don't know, Red Rising is sort of like a sci-fi fantasy kind of book where it's set in a different society where all of society is divided into different colored tiers. And the lowest tier color of that class is red tier, and the highest one is the gold tier. And Darrow, the main character of the story, is the part of the red tier. He's a hell diver. He goes around and looks for livable places for the higher society to be able to live on the surface of Mars. But then he finds out that the government has been lying to them the whole entire time, and after a tragedy, he decides to join the rebellion that is going against the color classes by infiltrating the golds. So I absolutely loved the book. I thought it was very Lord of the Fly-ish, so I feel like there might be some contention against that because I know a lot of people didn't like Lord of the Flies, but let's see. Brain Dead, Want to Be? Here's Red Rising. That is rude. Pierce Brown, I'm a hack writer buying my copy of The Hunger Games on Mars. I mean, Red Roses, Red Riding Hood. Okay, listen. Red Rising is different from Hunger Games. Hunger Games is a lot more dystopian, whereas Red Rising is a lot more sci-fi fantasy. So I don't know how they compare it to two. And I understand it's because of the dystopian future and everything, but for goodness sakes, and this other person already wrote another essay moving on to that. Someone just said, deleting this from my brain. I'm honestly trying not to find too much offense against any of these 1-star reviews because, again, reading is subjective and I like finding funny reviews. So if I like it from my own personal opinion, I will not go through Goodreads and look at the 1-star reviews of it because I just don't want to get my feelings hurt. And also, I don't want to question the validity of my feelings towards that book. Because then if I start reading people's 1-star reviews about books, then it's going to start making me think that oh, did it deserve the rating that I gave it? And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that to books that I love. And if I love the book, I'm just gonna leave it. This person said, I didn't connect or empathize with anything in Red Rising. A lot of events happened that should have had my heart beating faster and my energy level raising in order to read late into the night or very early morning. I couldn't put it down. There were so many action scenes in sequences that I didn't know who was gonna survive. A lot of people said they DNF'd it. I don't know if I agree with DNFing this book and thinking that you get the full sense of the book because there's so much stuff that happens. The plot, how it starts off in the beginning, is completely different to how it ends the story. So I don't really think that they should DNF it in the first chapter. A narcissist author who creates a narcissist main character he can live through. This guy is smarter, tougher, faster, and can do no wrong. He eases through every situation without a sweat and continually pats himself on the back. The writing style is so pretentious and makes me cringe. Classic lines like, he expects to win against me, he doesn't. Most wouldn't have reflexes fast enough. I do. What's wrong with a little bit of self-confidence? Especially in this world, you need self-confidence to keep going, especially with the things that are trying to fight to kill the character. Gather around, children, for the Hunger Games Gingers versus Nazis edition. Wow. This book left me feeling very underwhelmed. It's not that it's a bad book, it wasn't anything about it that really captured my imagination or set it apart from the other sci-fi books. The world building and the plot were fine, but there wasn't much that felt original or exciting to me in any way. Which is fair. I could see that they didn't see anything original or take anything from it, which is fair. Like I said, this book doesn't attract every single person's attention, but moving on. Let's move on to sort of a cozy fantasy. I'm not necessarily really a big cozy fantasy person. I like to have a lot of stakes in my fantasy books. There's one cozy fantasy book that I read in 2023 that I gave 5 stars to, and that one is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. And I thought it was fun. I thought it was cozy, and I thought the characters were great, and I liked how the family was, and I liked that how it centered on the main character having to teach younger witches her crafts. And I don't know what I'm missing here. Everybody loves this book. Also, the color combination of the cover is nearly perfect, so there's that. I love the cover. And the book is, well, not what I expected. I thought I'd read a funny, witchy, light fantasy with light romance, one sitting read. It was a witchy light fantasy with light romance read, and I did finish it in one sitting, maybe 2. This book delivered a lot, but not the way I wanted. I don't hate third-person POVs, but in this case I did. The writing style definitely doesn't work for me. It was extremely childish. I was afraid this book would sound too adultish, but instead I felt like I was reading a book for middle schoolers. I don't understand, and I don't see that. This is a no for me. Nope, nope. Did I even read the same book as everyone else? Call me Karen, but I don't find abundance of profanities cute, cozy, or magical. The F word is just about every 3rd page. I don't think this is filled with a lot of cuss words at all. I think that like I've read a lot more cuss-filled books, but okay. It's giving Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children mixed with a bit of The House into the Cerulean Sea. Well, I like both of those. I'm just not feeling this one. DNFing audio 25%. I did like Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and it did give me that kind of feeling. And I kind of soft DNF Cerulean Sea. I'm halfway through the book, but I haven't picked it up again since like it's been over a year now. And I don't know when I'll be able to pick it up because I just didn't find any of the characters intriguing. But it is very similar to The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. But I connected to The Very Secret Society a lot more than I did with The House of the Cerulean Sea, and it gives me the vibes of Miss Peregrine's Home. But I understand why this person gave it, especially if that's what they're used to, so sorry book, it's not me, it's you. We have a simplistic and mostly unexplained magic system, over-the-top and or bland secondary characters, a suitor male lead, insipid predictable romance, children who don't act like children, a very boring story. I mean, it's kind of a predictable romance because every single romance, there's a formula that follows, so of course it's going to be predictable. I don't know what she was expecting for it to be. It's a revolutionary story when it's a cozy fantasy, so I don't understand that. And children who don't act like children. Of course they don't act like children. They kind of were fostered and also taken away from their families, so they're not going to act like regular children who have the time of their lives. They're traumatized and are living with people who are not their family, the only people that they've ever had call as family. And also, I guess the male lead was okay. I wasn't like swooning over him, so I guess I kind of agree with that. Thanks, hated it. What a truly insufferable cast and writing style. I have serious trust issues with anyone that rated it this highly. This is one of my gripes of people when they post good reviews like this. Don't hate the person who recommended it or rates it 5 stars. Again, people have different opinions on book taste. Don't hate the person, don't hate the TikTokers who recommend this because they're recommending it because they personally loved it, and people who watch them want to know the recommendation. So I don't understand when people say don't trust the person who gives this 5 stars, because again, you're gonna tell me that there's a book that you love that I might not like as well, and then I'm not gonna completely blame you for recommending that book to me because I ended up hating it. I take it upon myself to, when I specifically don't like a book that everyone else likes, I start wondering if there's something wrong with me. That irritates me. That's one of my biggest irritations when people come across the review sites stating that they should not trust the people who recommend these books, because again, reading is subjective.
So this is my opinion, this is your opinion. That's all that matters.
Sorry, nothing gets me like more annoyed than when people say that. One word, cringe. That's actually pretty funny. 31-year-old Mika is a witch. We are peers, I guess. Of course, she is in a secrecy society of secretly secret witches, so she gets hired to tutor 3 7 to 10-year-old girls who are also witches. However, this book, the secrecy society of secretly secret witches, does not know about these girls. How come? Zero attachment to the characters, her writing is oversimplified, the book is overhyped, the plot is boring, swearing children, and children talking about sex, super insta love, and insta deep attachment among the characters. Yuck. The book is nothing like The House of Cerulean Sea. Well, yeah. While the characters were quirky, the plot felt very underwhelming and slow. I found myself struggling to finish it. Okay, let's move on before I keep hurting my feelings like this. Let's do Divine Rivals. Divine Rivals was my first book of Rebecca Ross's, and I absolutely love her writing. My friend was the one who recommended it to me, and it's very beautifully written, and I absolutely had to give it a 5 stars because towards some of the situations that happened, I was bawling my eyes out at the end. And it's a lot more, it's not necessarily full-on fantasy, it's just set in the fantasy setting, with the main focus is the love story. I love Divine Rivals, but Ruthless Vows was, it kind of took me away from the world because it was just staying with the main plot and the conflict of the war, and didn't really focus on Roman and Iris, which is one of the main reasons why I love the book in the first place. And I get it that there had to be a conclusion to the plot, but it just didn't captivate me as much as the first book did. She writes letters like I did when I was heartbroken at 13 over my Minecraft boyfriend. I know, why do people do this? But how? How do you... Okay, whatever. Anyways, that's a lot of questions I should not be asking. To all the girls on Book Talk that recommend to read this after 4th wing, I hate you. Hey, listen. You ask for book recommendations, people give it. Feeling bamboozled, lied to, led astray, stunted narration, cheesy dialogue, really bland characters with an elaborate hidden identity romance which was resolved really poorly. World building that never made any sense, horrible pacing. How do you manage to have a war happening in the background of your story and make it boring? Nothing about this worked for me, and I wish I had just committed to the DNF. It wasn't boring. I thought it was good. Why are people like this? What? The writing was pretty, but I'm also pretty. At least I have something to offer. What? Excuse me? Okay. I kind of respect the author for doing no world building at all. Right. Okay. Anyways. War, non-existent. Gods, non-existent. Character depth, non-existent. World building, non-existent. Romance, yikes. Dialogue, bigger yikes. Seriously questioning if I read the same book. Yikes is the correct way to read that review. Never have I wished for less romance in a novel. But it's fantasy romance. Okay. Okay, moving on. Let's do Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. Now, I want to see who are the people who could possibly rate this book 1 star. I like the situation where the male main character is the one who has anxiety, and he has to deal with the anxiety while falling for the female main character. And the female main character, Brianna, works her way around his anxiety. She knows to leave space for him. She knows the things that could possibly spike his anxiety, and she's more than understanding about it and gives him the grace to be able to handle it while still being there for him when she needs him. So let's see what people say about the 1 star, because I had nothing but great things to say about it, because I have anxiety and Jacob has anxiety, and being in his POV shows such an accurate representation of it, and to be represented like that in a book, of course I had to give it a 5 stars. So I don't know how people could give it a 1 star. This was so disappointing. I love Part of Your World so much. It was one of the top books last year. It was fun and adorable with great pace. The chemistry leapt off the page into my heart, and it was funny. Part 2, Much Ado About Nothing. I cannot take the anxiety that's leaping off these pages. Not only are you caught up in the anxiety, it's indecisive and repetitive. But that's what anxiety is. What do you mean? I dock a star for every 10 real life things you mention in a book. What do you mean? It's a contemporary romance. You don't like it realistic? I don't understand. Oof, this was rough, y'all. This was not the light rom-com I was expecting from Jimenez. Your Truly is a book that deals with some deep, heavy topics in the most unrealistic, out-of-touch way. Case in point, one character is thanking the other for donating his kidney. Yes, I said kidney like an organ. Goes, yeah, thanks for giving me the thing. What? It's just how they deal with it. I'm sorry I struggle with the scene, especially since one of the book above mentioned characters has to be informed of the restaurant he'll be attending so he can look over the menu so he doesn't have an anxiety attack when it comes to order. Whoa, this review is just highly judgmental. What the heck? No. Sounds like your own personal, reactions to this. I hated this book. The mention of Jacob's anxieties, Constance literally his personality, and Brianna needs therapy ASAP. Because he has anxiety! Wow. I almost threw the book at my wall. Actually torturous. Okay, I feel like people are just hating to hate at this point. Someone just said barf, barf, barf. Okay, thanks for the review. Let's move on. I'm gonna go to one of my most recent 5-star books, which is sort of like one of my favorite God tier books, and it's Reign of Shadows and Endings. I've talked about this book so many times on the channel already, and I just want to see what people... okay, I'll understand. I'll preface this before I go into the reviews that I understand that Reign of Shadows and Endings is not for everyone. It's very dark fantasy. It's filled with trauma, and it's filled with a lot of miscommunication between the characters, and normally I hate miscommunication trope. It bothers me to no ends when two characters are just not talking to each other. But in this situation, it's a different situation because Tessa is a fae and Theon uses Tessa as his source, so she didn't want this, but he is being an absolute arrogant person who believes that he deserves a source, which every single one of these legacies has been trained to take on a source, and fays are just meant to be sort of like their slaves at this point. So I know it's not going to be for everyone, so let's just see what they say, and I already have a feeling what they're going to say about this book for the 1 star. Tessa being abused by everyone again and again. I mean, it's not incorrect, you know. This person gave the book 1-star review because his emerald eyes were mentioned 36 times. Okay. Alright, I don't write reviews ever, but I'm sorry, what in this book deserves 4.23 stars? I'm keeping this short. The world building, just about non-existent. What? The non-existent world building? It's right there on the page. The first page. What are you talking about? Time period who? It's a urban fantasy. You could probably assume it's set during modern times because they have cell phones and Spotify and everything, so you could assume that it's set during this time. Let's forget about making things make sense and pick and choose what we like from modern world and from history and make a soup out of it. Communication, apparently a word they haven't heard of in this book. It literally mentions in the first book that they are not going to be the best characters ever and they're not going to be its best communicators, so I understand that why the miscommunication trope is bad. As somebody said, this was one of the worst books I've ever read. I've read worse books, so I don't agree with that. This book was just annoying. The FMC is stubborn and sleeps for 90% of the book, and it feels like every man in this world is just taking advantage of her. The MMC being no different. I was hoping this would be a normal dark romance where the MC has some redeeming qualities. None. Zayd is an angel compared to this guy. No thanks, I hate it. I'm assuming Zayd is from a different other... Is he from Haunting Adeline? Is that the correct dark romance I'm thinking of? Well, I mean, I would sleep too if I was going through the traumatic stuff that Tessa was, so yeah. I agree that she slept a lot of the book, but it's sort of like a long game with these characters. Majority of these 1-star reviews are saying that they DNF'd it. I really tried to like this book. I even kept on reading despite my better judgment. And while I love morally gray men, Theon is not morally gray and is just a villain in my opinion. The mention of ownership/master comments are mentioned too often to be enjoyable, especially as it is not listed in the triggers. I mean, he is sort of her master. Whatever, anyways. But yeah, I'm done. I was gonna do more books on my reading 1-star reviews of my favorite books, but I can't take it. My heart can't take it because I love these books so much and I'm emotionally invested in all these books, and when people knock down my favorite books, it feels like I'm being knocked down. So to preserve my mental health, I'm going to end this video right here, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know in the comments if you want more videos like this and I can add more parts and hurt myself even more. So let's see. But anyways, thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.